They never wanted you to win. They just wanted you to stay beneath them. They never clapped for you. Not really. They smiled. They nodded. They patted you on the back. But only as long as you stayed where you were. As long as you were small. As long as you were manageable. The moment you tried to climb, the moment you reached for something bigger, everything changed. The warmth faded. Conversations turned cold. The same people who once offered advice now had nothing to say. No more encouragement. No more support. Just silence. Because the truth is, they never wanted you to rise. They never wanted you to outgrow them. Your struggle made them feel comfortable. Your pain reassured them. They watched you break. They watched you bleed. And they told themselves they cared. But deep down, they enjoyed it. Because as long as you were drowning, they felt safe. You were proof that it was okay to stay the same. But now you're a threat. Now they watch with uneasy smiles. They whisper behind closed doors. They pretend not to notice, but they do. Every step you take upward twists a knife in their insecurities. Every ounce of progress you make is a mirror reflecting what they failed to become. They never hated your struggle. They hated the idea of you escaping it. And now that you have, they will hate you even more. Because when you rise, you don't just prove them wrong. You remind them they never even tried. You begged for help. They heard you, and they walked away. You waited. You pleaded. You reached out with open hands, expecting someone, anyone, to pull you back from the edge. But no one came. They heard you. They saw you. And still, they turned away. Not because they couldn't help. Not because they didn't see you suffering. But because your struggle was convenient for them. As long as you were down, they didn't have to question themselves. As long as you were weak, they didn't have to acknowledge their own failures. Your suffering was a story they enjoyed watching, but never wanted to be part of. And in that silence, in that abandonment, you learned the hardest truth of all. No one is coming to save you. Not your friends, not your family, not the people who swore they would always be there. The world doesn't stop for your pain. The world doesn't pause to lift you up. It moves forward without you, stepping over your body like roadkill. And in that moment of absolute isolation, you realize something terrifying. You were truly alone. This is the moment that breaks most people. This is the moment that crushes souls, that turns the strongest hearts into dust. Because the weight of loneliness is heavier than failure, heavier than pain, heavier than the betrayal itself. It's a kind of silence that doesn't just echo, it drowns you. But here's what they never expected. You survived it. You didn't shatter. You didn't disappear. You stood in the storm, battered, broken, bleeding. And you stayed standing. Not because it was easy, not because you had a choice, but because there was no other option. You clawed your way out of the abyss with nothing but your own strength, your own resilience, your own relentless refusal to be buried alive. And now, they don't know what to do with you, because you no longer need them. Because the moment you realized no one was coming, you became dangerous. The world thrives on dependency. train you to believe that help is coming, that someone will always be there to catch you. It's a lie designed to keep you weak, a lie meant to keep you waiting instead of moving. They made you believe that if you fell, someone would catch you. They let you think that if things got bad enough, someone would step in, that there would be a safety net beneath you. But there isn't. There never was. And you learned that lesson the hard way. Now look at them. The same people who ignored your pain, who walked past your suffering with empty eyes. Now they watch you with something else. Confusion, fear, regret. Because when they turned their backs, they expected you to stay down. They expected you to be crushed under the weight of your own pain. They never thought you'd rise, but you did. And now, they don't know who you are anymore. You're not the same person who begged for their help. You're not the same person who needed their validation. That version of you died in the silence they left you in. And what rose from the ashes was something else entirely. Something unbreakable. Something untouchable. And that is what they truly fear. Because now, they are the ones who feel small. Now they are the ones who realize what they lost when they turned away. But it's too late for them. They will never get another chance to break you again. Because you have learned to stand on your own. And nothing is more terrifying to them than someone who no longer needs a hand to hold. This is where everything changes. This is where they begin to fear you. Not because you seek revenge. Not because you hold resentment, but because you simply don't care anymore. Indifference is more powerful than hate. Silence is more destructive than rage. The moment you stop seeking their approval, their validation, their presence, you win. Because now, you walk alone. And they are left watching a ghost of who they used to know, haunted by the realization that they could have stood beside you, but chose to walk away. And now, there is no way back. They watched you drown with a smile, because as long as you were sinking, they felt safe. They were always watching, not to help, not to lift you up, but to see how much more you could take before you finally collapsed. They whispered their empty sympathies, nodding along while you poured your heart out, while you bled in front of them. But deep down, they enjoyed it. Because every second you spent struggling was a reminder that they weren't alone in their own misery. Your suffering was their entertainment. Your failure was their comfort. They didn't just tolerate your pain, they fed off it. Because as long as you were drowning, they didn't have to feel guilty for never trying. As long as you were crawling, they never had to look at their own wasted potential. You gave them an excuse to stay weak. That's why they clapped when you broke. That's why they laughed behind closed doors when you failed. Because your downfall was proof that staying the same was safe. And deep down, they hoped you would never figure it out. That's why the moment you tried to rise, they changed. Not with open hatred. No, that would be too obvious. They wouldn't dare expose themselves like that. Instead, they masked it with doubt, with false concern. Are you sure you can handle this? Maybe this just isn't for you. You don't want to get your hopes up too high. It was never advice. It was never care. It was a leash wrapped around your throat, disguised as kindness. Because the idea of you rising made them sick. Not because they hated you, but because your success would strip away every excuse they ever made for themselves. So they waited. Waited for the moment you'd fall again. Watched from the sidelines, waiting for proof that they were right about you. That you weren't strong enough. That you weren't different. That you would come crawling back, just like they always believed you would. When you did stumble, they smiled. They acted concerned. But you could hear it in their voices, the satisfaction. I knew this would happen. It's okay. Not everyone is meant for this. Maybe you should just focus on something else. The words dripped with fake compassion, but underneath, they were celebrating. Because in their world, your suffering made sense. Your struggle fit the script they had written for you. The one where you never rise. The one where you never prove them wrong. The one where you stay exactly where they need you to be. Beneath them. That's why they never truly supported you. That's why their encouragement was always empty. Their praise always hesitant. Because if you succeeded, if you actually escaped, what would that say about them? It would mean they wasted years making excuses. It would mean their failures were never about bad luck or unfair circumstances. It was always their own weakness. And that is a truth they would rather die than face. So they kept watching, kept waiting, kept hoping that eventually you'd break again. And if you stayed down long enough, they would have been the first to offer you just enough comfort to keep you from trying again. Because the greatest lie they ever told you was that they wanted you to win. But you saw through it. The moment you stopped looking for support, the moment you stopped expecting genuine help, everything changed. The anger you once felt, it wasn't anger anymore. It was fuel. You didn't just wake up. You became something else. Something they never saw coming. Because you realized that every moment you spent doubting yourself was a moment they were winning. Every second you hesitated, every time you questioned your worth, you were feeding the very people who wanted you to fail. No more. They wanted to watch you drown. Let them. They wanted to see you struggle. Let them enjoy the show. But what they never expected, what they were never prepared for, was that you wouldn't break, you wouldn't sink, you would rise. And the moment they saw that, their smiles disappeared. Because now, the fear has shifted. Now, it's in their eyes. Because every step forward you take proves them wrong. Every success you taste, every goal you crush, every limit you shatter, it all forces them to confront the one thing they spent their entire lives running from. The fact that they could have done the same. And now they can't stand you. Not because you hurt them, not because you betrayed them, but because you are proof that their suffering was always a choice. You have become everything they feared, and they will never forgive you for it. The day you stopped asking for help was the day you became dangerous. Something inside you broke. Not in the way they expected. Not in the way that left you weak, shattered, desperate for someone to put you back together. No, this was different. This wasn't the breaking of a victim. This was the breaking of a leash. Because one day, after all the silence, After all the fake smiles, after all the moments you reached out only to be ignored, you just stopped. Stopped asking, stopped explaining, stopped waiting. And in that moment, something shifted. The weight you carried, the one that made you feel like you owed people explanations, like you needed their permission to exist, it disappeared. Not because they finally gave you what you needed, not because they suddenly started caring, but because you no longer needed them at all. And that terrified them, because the world is built on control, not through force, not through violence, but through dependency. They keep you weak by making you believe you need them. They make you think survival depends on their approval, on their validation, on their so-called wisdom. But the moment you stop needing, the moment you stop looking for a hand to hold, you become untouchable. And that's exactly what happened. They didn't notice it at first. They thought you were just going through another phase, another spiral. They assumed you would come back, that eventually you'd crack and come crawling back for their advice, their approval, their recognition. But you never did. You stopped calling, stopped explaining yourself, stopped caring about their opinions. And when they finally realized it, when they saw that you were moving in silence, building in the shadows, transforming into something they could no longer predict, they panicked. Because they only had power over you when you sought something from them. They only felt secure when they knew you were still looking in their direction, still waiting for them to give you permission to rise. But now they don't know what you're thinking. Now they don't know what you're planning. People fear what they can't control. You see, people don't actually want you to be independent. They don't want you to be self-sufficient. They just want you to struggle in a way that still benefits them. They'll offer just enough support to keep you dependent, just enough praise to keep you chasing their approval, just enough attention to keep you hooked, but never enough for you to outgrow them. They call it loyalty. They call it friendship. But it's not. It's a cage. And the second you realize you don't need it, you become a threat. Not because you're violent, not because you seek revenge, but because you don't seek them anymore. Your silence unnerves them. Your lack of explanation frustrates them. The fact that you no longer react, it terrifies them, because they expected your struggle to break you. They expected you to become bitter, desperate, lost without them. But instead, you became disciplined, focused, unstoppable. And now they don't know how to handle you. Because here's the truth. The day you stopped begging was the day you became free. And freedom is power. Not the kind they teach in history books. Not the kind they talk about in speeches. Real power. The power to walk away. The power to not care. The power to exist without needing validation from anyone. That kind of power is rare. And people hate what they don't understand. So they'll try to pull you back. They'll try to convince you that you've changed, that you're losing yourself, that you're becoming cold. But it's not coldness, it's clarity. For the first time, you see things as they really are. You see how much time you wasted waiting for people who never truly cared. You see how many years you spent seeking approval from those who never even respected you. And now you don't even look in their direction. And And that is what they hate the most. Because your silence speaks louder than anything you could ever say. Because your absence is louder than any argument you could ever make. Because without you chasing them, they have nothing left to feel superior to. This is the shift. This is when they stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a problem. Because the truth is, they only liked you when you were beneath them. They only supported you when your success was small enough not to threaten their own comfort. But now you don't need their advice. You don't need their encouragement. You don't need their permission. You move without hesitation. You grow without limits. You speak only when necessary. And you let your success be the only response they will ever get from you. Because you are no longer trying to survive. You are preparing for something greater. Something they will never be ready for. While they laughed, you trained. While they slept, you built. Now they don't know what to do with you. They never took you seriously. They thought you were wasting your time. Thought your plans were just empty dreams. Another phase you'd outgrow. Because in their minds, you were predictable. They had already written your story before you even had a chance to live it. A story where you stayed beneath them, where you never broke free. So they laughed. They mocked your efforts, dismissed your discipline, rolled their eyes at your ambition. But while they were laughing, you were working. While they spent their nights wasting time, you spent yours in silence, sharpening yourself. They didn't see the late nights, the early mornings, the sacrifices. They didn't notice when you stopped talking, stopped explaining, stopped showing them what you were working on. Because you understood something they never did. Power isn't built in public. It's forged in the dark. The real work happens when no one is watching. The real transformation isn't loud. It's quiet, relentless, unseen. And that's why they never saw you coming. They expected noise. They expected you to announce your progress, to beg for validation, to seek their approval. But you never did. You disappeared. You went silent. You let them assume whatever they wanted. Let them believe you had given up. And in that silence, you built something unstoppable. They assumed that if they didn't see progress, there was none. That if you weren't constantly talking about your plans, you had none. But they forgot something. The most dangerous people in this world are the ones who work in silence, the ones who don't seek attention, the ones who don't crave recognition, the ones who grind in the shadows, moving like ghosts, unseen until the moment they strike. And that's exactly what you became. A storm gathering just beyond their vision. A force growing stronger with every passing second, while they stood still, oblivious. And then one day, without warning, you arrived. Faster, stronger, sharper, unrecognizable. And now, they don't know what to do with you. Because they only knew how to handle the old you. The one who hesitated. The one who second-guessed. The one who needed their validation. But this version of you, this version is unreadable, unshakable, untouchable, and it terrifies them. Because they no longer know what you're thinking, no longer know what you're planning. You don't share your moves. You don't announce your next step. You just act. And nothing unsettles people more than someone they can't predict. They are used to dealing with noise. They know how to handle arrogance, overconfidence, the need for recognition. But a quiet mind, a disciplined mind, that's something they don't know how to fight. And that's why, for the first time, they're afraid of you. Because now, they realize the truth. You were never weak. You were never lost. You were never wasting time. You were waiting, not for permission, not for luck, not for a sign. You were waiting for the right moment. You let them underestimate you. Let them believe you had nothing left in you. While they were standing still, convinced you had given up, you became something else entirely. And now, they're scrambling, trying to figure out what happened, trying to understand when the shift occurred, trying to rationalize why you no longer react the way you used to. But it's too late, because the game has changed, and they are still playing by the old rules. This is the moment of psychological dominance. Not because you seek revenge, not because you need to prove them wrong, but because you no longer care what they think at all. You move on your own time. You play by your own rules. And now, they are the ones watching. Watching with uncertainty. Watching with regret. Watching with the sick realization that the very person they once mocked is now the one they fear. And the best part, you don't even notice them anymore. Because you are too busy building. You are just getting started. They used to laugh, now they whisper. Because they don't recognize you anymore. At first, they mocked you. They laughed at your ambition, ridiculed your discipline, rolled their eyes at your efforts. They swore you would never change. They needed to believe that. Because as long as you stayed the same, they never had to confront their own stagnation. But now they don't laugh anymore. Now when you walk into a room, they don't make jokes, they don't smirk. They don't try to belittle you. Instead, they whisper, they watch, they study you, trying to understand how the person they once knew, the person they had boxed in, labeled, underestimated, became this. You don't talk the way you used to. You don't react the way they expect. You move differently, think differently. Exist differently. And that terrifies them. Because nothing is more unsettling than someone who no longer fits the narrative they created. You see, people don't really fear change. They fear your change. Because the moment you became something more, something they never thought possible, you shattered their illusion of control. You were supposed to stay the same. You were supposed to keep making the same mistakes, repeating the same patterns, trapped in the same cycle. That's why they kept you close. That's why they acted like they cared. Not because they truly wanted you to grow, but because they needed you to stay predictable. They needed you to be someone they could understand. Someone they could feel superior to. But now you've become unreadable. You no longer explain yourself. No longer seek validation. No longer move according to their expectations. And that's why, for the first time, they are afraid. Because they don't recognize you. More than that, they don't know what you're capable of anymore. There's an uneasiness in their eyes now, a hesitation in their words, a nervous energy when they speak to you. Because now, the dynamic has shifted. Before, They look down on you. Now they don't even know where to place you. You've outgrown the version of yourself they were comfortable with. And that realization, it haunts them. Because if you could change, if you could evolve into something stronger, sharper, more disciplined, what does that say about them? It forces them to ask questions they've spent years avoiding. If they did it, why didn't I? If they broke free, why am I still here? But instead of facing those questions, they'll do what weak people always do. They will resent you. Not because you wronged them, not because you betrayed them, but because you proved them wrong. Because you proved that all the things they told themselves were impossible were possible all along. That's the real reason for their fear. Not your success, not your strength, but what your existence reveals about their own failures. Because now, they have no excuse left. They can't blame the world anymore. They can't pretend it's just luck or circumstance that kept them from changing. Because you started from the same place they did. You fought the same battles. And yet, here you stand. Unrecognizable, unstoppable, unforgiving. And the truth is, they will never forgive you for it. They will never forgive you for showing them that the only thing holding them back was themselves. Your silence is louder than their screams, and they can't stand it. They wanted a reaction. They wanted you to fight, to argue, to scream back. They wanted to see proof that they still mattered to you. Because as long as you responded, as long as you defended yourself, as long as you still acknowledged their presence, they had power. But you didn't give them that. You walked away. No explanations, no apologies, no final words, just silence. And now they're losing their minds. Because nothing torments a person more than being ignored by someone they thought they controlled. Silence is a weapon. One more powerful than anger. More devastating than revenge. Because anger shows you still care. Revenge shows they still have a place in your mind. But silence is erasure. It forces them to sit with themselves, to hear their own thoughts echoing in a space where your voice once was. It leaves them alone with the truth they never wanted to face. That they never mattered as much as they thought they did. And that is unbearable. At first, they'll pretend it doesn't bother them. They'll act like they don't notice your absence, like it's insignificant, like you walking away didn't shift something in their world. But behind closed doors, they check your progress, they check your movements, they check to see if you'll ever come back. Because the moment you stopped speaking to them, the moment you stopped explaining yourself, they were left with a question they can't answer. What if I was wrong about them? And that question consumes them. Because if they were wrong about you, if you weren't the weak, predictable person they thought you were, if you actually became something greater, then what does that say about them? Your silence forces them to acknowledge what they've been avoiding their entire lives. That you didn't need them. That their approval was never required. That all the words they threw at you, all the doubt, all the whispers behind your back, none of it mattered. Because now, you exist beyond them, beyond their reach. beyond their words, beyond their control. And that is what destroys them the most. Not losing you, but knowing that you don't even think about them anymore. That while they obsess over your absence, you've moved forward without hesitation. And now, their world is the only one that feels small. That's why silence is the most devastating revenge. Because it leaves nothing for them to fight. They can't argue with silence, can't debate it, can't twist it, can't manipulate it. They can only sit in it, drown in it. That's exactly what's happening. Your absence has become a void in their lives, one they can't fill, no matter how much noise they make. They will try to replace you, try to act like nothing has changed, try to convince themselves that you were never important. No matter what they do, no matter how loud they get, they will always feel your silence, and it will haunt them forever. They act like they don't care, but they watch every move you make. They used to act like you didn't exist, when you were struggling, when you were lost, when you were clawing your way through the dark. They never looked in your direction. You were invisible. They didn't acknowledge your efforts, didn't recognize your sacrifices, didn't even bother to notice how much pain you had to endure just to keep going. Because back then, you were no threat to them. But now they can't take their eyes off you. Now they watch every move you make, analyze every step you take, dissect every decision you make. Because they don't understand how you did it, how you survived, how you rebuilt, how you became something they swore was impossible. They never cared when you were losing. But now that you're winning, they can't look away. They'll pretend they don't see you. Pretend they don't hear your name. Pretend that your success is nothing but a coincidence. That you just got lucky. That you changed in a way that's somehow wrong. But you know the truth. Because the same people who never acknowledged your struggle are now obsessed with your rise. They watch silently from the shadows, never congratulating you, never admitting they were wrong, but watching. Always watching. Because deep down, they know. They know that while they were wasting time, you were working. That while they were waiting for life to hand them something, you were out there taking what was yours. And that realization, it burns them. Because your rise is a mirror, a reflection of everything they could have been, but never had the discipline to become. Their hatred isn't real. They don't hate you. They don't despise you. They don't think you're too much, or too different, or too lucky. What they hate is what you represent. You represent discipline in a world full of distractions. You represent transformation in a world that encourages stagnation. You are the proof they never wanted to see, that all their excuses were lies. And now, every time they see you rise, it reminds them of what they refused to do. It reminds them that they stayed in the same place while you kept moving forward. And so, they watch, not to support you, not to be inspired, but because they can't help themselves. Because jealousy isn't a choice, it's a reflex. You don't seek their approval anymore. You don't care if they recognize your success. You don't need their validation, their applause, their words of acceptance. Because you already won. Not just because you made it out. Not just because you proved them wrong. because you no longer need them to see you. The only reason they're watching now is because they can't help it. Because the rise they never believed in, the one they laughed at, the one they mocked, is happening right in front of them. And it's too late for them to stop it. Too late for them to deny it. Too late for them to pretend that you were never a threat. Because you are. And they will never stop watching. They will never stop waiting for you to fall. Never stop searching for proof that you were just a fluke. That you were just lucky. That you didn't really earn what you have. But they will never find it. Because you are only going to keep rising. And no matter how hard they try to look away, they never will. They thought they could replace you. But now they realize you were the only one like you. They never thought twice when they let you go. They believed you were disposable, replaceable. That someone else would fill your space, match your effort, bring the same energy you once gave so freely. But now they know. Now they feel it. The absence. Not just the missing conversations. Not just the silence where your presence used to be. Something deeper. The gap that no one else can fill. The void that lingers no matter how many people they try to surround themselves with. Because the truth is, you were never just another person. You were the one who cared when no one else did. The one who showed up, who fought, who stayed when it would have been easier to walk away. And they took it for granted. They thought you would always be there. That you would always be within reach. Always ready to forgive. Always willing to fix what they broke. But they were wrong. Because now you are gone. At first they convinced themselves it didn't matter. They tried to downplay it. Tried to act indifferent. People come and go. It's not a big deal. They weren't that important anyway. But deep down they feel the loss. Because no matter who they bring into their life, no matter how many replacements they try to find, no one is you. No one thinks the way you think. No one moves the way you move. No one brings the same fire, the same depth, the same loyalty. And now, they are starting to realize something they never considered before. You weren't just an option. You were the only one like you. And they let you slip through their fingers. Regret isn't about what they did to you. It's about what they lost when they lost you. They thought you would always wait. Thought you would always be there. No matter how many times they overlooked you, doubted you, pushed you away. But now, for the first time, they see it. They see what life feels like without you in it. And it's empty. Because now, when they need support, there's no one there. Now when they need someone to believe in them, they realize the only person who ever truly did was you. And now, you are nowhere to be found. They never appreciated you when they had you. But now they would do anything to get you back. But it's too late. Because the person they knew, the one who gave endlessly, who waited, who hoped, who fought for people who never deserved them, that version of you is gone. And what stands in its place? Someone who doesn't look back. Someone who doesn't need closure, doesn't need explanations, doesn't need to hear another excuse. Someone who has already moved on. And that is what will haunt them forever. Not that they hurt you, but that they can never reach you again. Their punishment isn't your anger. It isn't your revenge. It's your absence. And there is no escape from that. No second chance. No way to undo what's already been done. Because now they regret everything. And you don't regret a thing. By the time they realize what they did, you'll be too far ahead to care. There was a time when their words could reach you. A time when their opinions mattered. When their approval felt like something worth chasing. When their rejection left scars that took years to heal. But that time is over. Because now, you are untouchable. Not because they stopped trying to hurt you. Not because they finally respect you. But because you stopped caring. Stopped looking for their validation. Stopped needing them to understand you. Stopped explaining yourself to people who never deserved to hear your voice in the first place. They could praise you now, and it wouldn't change a thing. They could apologize now, and it wouldn't matter. Because you've already moved past them. Too far ahead for them to reach. And the best part, they know it. They thought they had time. They thought they could keep you in their orbit. That you would always be somewhere within reach, waiting, watching, hoping they would see you differently. But they never did. And now, they never will. Because you aren't even in the same world anymore. They are still playing games, still looking for drama, still feeding off negativity, still running in circles, still stuck. And you are light years ahead, too evolved for their mind games, too disciplined for their distractions, too powerful to even acknowledge their existence. And that is what destroys them the most. Not that you left, but that you never looked back. They could try to find you, but the version of you they knew no longer exists. The one who cared what they thought. Gone. The one who waited for them to change. Gone. The one who needed to prove something. Dead and buried. And now, they don't know how to handle it. Because the game they played for so long, the one where they made you question yourself, where they kept you running in circles, chasing their acceptance, you're not playing anymore. And without you in it, the game collapses. Because you were never the pawn. You were the whole damn board. And now, you own it. This is the moment they realize the truth. That they lost something they can never get back. That they wasted their time trying to break someone who only became stronger. That everything they did, every moment they tried to doubt you, belittle you, underestimate you, only fueled your rise. And by the time they understand this, it's already too late. Because you don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need revenge. You don't need them to see your success. Because your success was never for them. It was always for you. And now, it's all yours. No one can take it from you. And no one can ever touch you again. Your success is their punishment. And that's why they'll never forgive you for winning. They will never say it out loud. They will never admit that they were wrong about you. Never acknowledge the doubt, the mockery, the way they dismissed you as just another failure waiting to happen. They will never give you the satisfaction of hearing them say, "I should have believed in you." But you don't need to hear it. Because their silence is louder than any apology. Their discomfort when they hear your name. Their hesitation when they see your success. The way they pretend not to notice, not to care, while watching every move you make. That is your answer. That is your proof. And that is their punishment. Because deep down, they know. They know they lost something they can never get back. Not just you. Not just your loyalty, your time, your presence. They lost the chance to be part of your story. A chance to stand beside you instead of against you. A chance to rise with you instead of trying to hold you down. And now, no matter how much they regret it, there is no way back. They will never get another chance to doubt you. Never get another opportunity to break you. Never get another moment where their words, their opinions, their presence has any impact on you at all. Because you have outgrown them. And nothing will ever bring you back. You don't hate them. You don't need revenge. Because nothing you could ever say, nothing you could ever do would hurt them more than what has already happened. You won. They will never forgive you for it. They will never forgive you for proving them wrong. Never forgive you for refusing to break. Never forgive you for becoming everything they said you could never be. Because every time they see you rise, every time they hear your name, every time they witness what you've become, it reminds them of everything they never had the courage to do. So let them talk. Let them hate. Let them tell themselves whatever lies they need to believe to sleep at night. None of it matters anymore. Because you don't exist in their world anymore. You are too far ahead. Too powerful. Too untouchable. And now you don't even hear them anymore. Because their voices no longer matter. And that is the last thing they will ever remember about you. That when you finally won, you didn't even look back.